am going to explain to you how to start your reflections project. So last class, you should have had an opportunity to go in and brainstorm an idea. This is the most important step because it gives you an opportunity to think of things that you will be interested in spending an entire project on. So it could take you hours to do this, days to do this, weeks to do this. Make sure it's an idea that you actually believe in. So once you have brainstormed, the next thing you're going to do is sketch out your idea. This is something that you could do one of, and it's like, whoa, I love that idea. But a lot of times, your best idea is not your first idea. So you'll probably do several different sketches, and then after you've done those different sketches, you'll go in and you'll throw it down onto your piece of paper. And that's when you'll go to step 3, and that's when you're really going to think about your space. How large is your paper? Where is everything going to go? Which compositional techniques am I going to use? Do I need to keep in mind my rule of thirds? How am I going to balance my piece? All of this information would be in step 3, where you're really planning your space. Once your space is planned out, then you can start talking about clarifying details. This is when you would look at objects for reference. This is when you could get out a different piece of paper, sketch out your idea onto that different piece of paper, and then transfer it onto your final piece. You can even work directly onto this paper, but you want to make sure you're always drawing very lightly. And then 5, this is when you're going to think about contours, which are outlines, and how are you going to get everything on there that you need to know so that when you are coloring, you no longer have to think about what you're coloring, but you have to think instead about how am I going to make this into a make this flat object into a form? How am I going to, which colors am I going to use in this object? It should be after step 5, it should be like coloring a coloring book page rather than trying to make up information with materials that most likely you can't erase. So all of this is all just the beginning of your drawing. And then after step 5, that's when you go in and you start to think really carefully about it. So I'm going to talk about my brainstorming. I had those questions in there for you to answer. So when I went through and answered those questions for myself, what I found is that there were a lot of important things in my life, but that I really thought that I wanted to represent the people, or in some cases the animals, that I feel I'm responsible for and helping, the ones that I feel like I am really helping. So I had a few ideas, but I ended up really liking this one right here. We always are asked this question of our why for teaching, and I am very proud that I get to be the kind of person that teaches other people how to become creative individuals and creative thinkers. So I have here a song that I like, which is Make Your Own Kind of Music by Cass Elliot. And I put that in the background because I knew I wanted that to somehow be in the background. I wanted that to somehow be in my drawing. And then I have a student at a desk here. So I thought about it, and I realized at some point that I don't really like it being so literal and having these words back here. Visual storytelling is about showing, not telling, and I'm not somebody who likes to be in your face about things. I like it to be more subtle. So what I did was I started thinking about music and visual representations of music, and I created a sound wave that shows part of the song here. So I am going to incorporate this into my background, and there's an example of brainstorming, and sketching, and researching too. So maybe I should put in here researching. Researching is important because you're also going to be practicing your sketches and looking at references when you're practicing. So now, planning out my space. I know that I want there to be a desk in this space, and I'm probably going to put it down towards the bottom because I want there to be a good amount of space near the bottom for the desk and the person, and then plenty of space in the background where I can include all of the inspirational pieces for the student in my drawing. Something to keep in mind is you can do this on a separate piece of paper and then transfer it, especially if you're somebody who's rather heavy-handed in their sketching. I am not heavy-handed, so I feel comfortable drawing directly onto my paper. One thing to keep in mind is usually you have a frame that goes around your piece. So you want to make sure you give plenty of space for that frame. So this is my desk, and then I'm going to have my person sitting at the desk and kind of get them to a position where it looks like maybe they have their arms on the desk, where their hands are going to be. I'm left-handed, so I'm going to make this a left-handed person. And then behind them, that's where I'm going to put this. Now, like I said, I like it to be subtle. So what I'm going to do is maybe instead of using these literally as lines in the background, I'm going to think of these as leading lines. And I'm going to think, how can I get this to be more like a rhythm than being obviously musical, music sound waves. So what I'm going to do is sketch out these lines. Got the 3 big lines. They're evenly spaced. I'm not really worrying about yet what they look like. It's more about where they are. And that is something that a lot of students struggle with. So that's something that I want you to work on. When you're drawing, start off with where things are, not how they look. Well, obviously you're still thinking about how they look, but not in a sense of like how much detail can I get in there. So here it is. These are my most important lines from here. And so now my space is broken up. And now I can start to think about what am I going to put in these spaces. I'm going to take a separate piece of paper and I'm going to really think about where these are, what's going to go here by sketching them out here. Eventually, once I have an idea of everything and where everything's going to go, that's when I can go in and really start to plan out the details. Maybe I want to give this person an identity. Maybe I don't want this person to be recognizable. So maybe I want it to be more abstract. You want to recognize it as a person, but you don't want to be able to identify who that person is. So that way it can feel like it's anybody. Always think about how your design is going to be interpreted by somebody else. If you don't feel like, if you want it to be interpreted a certain way, you've got to think about how would somebody feel when they look at this? What is it going to make them think? So, obviously, very rough sketch, very basic start, and I am going to spend a lot more time really thinking about my background, thinking about what's going to go here before I get to that draw important contours section. And when I say important contours, I mean things like shadows, and draw them all lightly. You're not going to fill them in. You're going to draw outlines of those spaces. So contours are outlines, and then at the end, that's when you can start coloring. And it's still not the end. It's more like the middle part of it. And I have a bunch of videos that you can look at on YouTube. help you figure out how to fill in that space. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.